Hello, it's us again. Welcome back to the Trek Way with Grey Gamer and myself, Trevor. Hello. Uh,
Howdy.
I'm really looking forward to this one. We're keeping it fresh. We haven't talked much about it before on purpose because we're probably just going to
Right.
explode and go a bit nuts here. This is Star Trek Picard's review, episode 3. Sorry, season 3. I'm already all over the place, guys. Season 3,
That's right. What?
episode 9, titled Vox, which is important because it means something that Grey will know later on.
I know what Vox is. We're gonna say it now or later.
Does it spoil it by saying
not
it
not
now?
the not the episode. No, I was talking about the word. The word Vox
Yeah.
means voice.
Yes.
And the only
Very
reason I
important.
even knew that was because years ago, and I used to watch a lot of rock and roll bands and local bands and stuff like that. When you have amplifiers for bands and there's a bunch of volume controls, and there's always a volume control that says Vox on it, which is meant for the voice microphone. And then your other volume controls are meant for your instruments. So I always remember seeing Vox for voice, and I just kind of like, oh, okay. And then I looked it up to see if I was right, and of course it does. The definition is voice, or generally voice only.
Yeah. Huh, interesting. Well, there
So
you go. It will lead into this episode, believe you me, and we'll probably pick up later on and tell you where it pops in. Uh right. Okay. Let's just dive in, man, because this is nuts.
Mhm.
I note at the start here, just important to mention, Terry Metalis, aka God, aka Star Trek Savior, aka well, a Nobel Prize for something. I don't care what it is. He writes and directs this episode. He also writes and directs the next episode, and he wrote the first episode as well. So this just tells you how good he
by the way,
is.
there is the Saturn and Nebula Awards, which they give out to science fiction writers and shows.
Is that just for sci-fi? Right. Okay. I've learned something. There you
In
go.
fact, side note, the only show to ever win two of those was Babylon 5 for the writing.
Hmm.
And it won a bunch of other ones too, but that particular one, they won too.
Well,
So
he should win it,
this would
man.
be in the running and probably be nominated. So hey,
Several awards, mate, as well, for because
yeah,
they get different categories like the Oscars. Yeah.
kind of a little bit, not
Not
like
as
the
in
Oscars.
depth.
The
Aye,
Oscars,
yeah. The Oscars you can get. Who wore the best pants?
the best, yeah, the best pet, and
Yeah.
oh yeah, give him an Academy Award. Yeah, no, not
um,
that much.
yes. So Terry he's blew me away. I'm going to struggle to get this episode done, but I'm going to because it's just so good. Right. Okay. So where we left off last episode is essentially where we pick up here. Surprise, surprise.
Yep.
Where Troy is reading Jack's mind, and then she gets the heebie-jeebies massively because she finally goes through that bloody red door, Grey. I mean, honest to God. And she's trying to find out from him what's behind the door and the answer to all these vines that we keep seeing.
Right.
Uh, and as I note down here, hot dog in a hallway, just what I thought. She opens the door and it's the bloody Borg. The OG Borg, Grey, not that bloody inbred
Yeah,
hippie
sorority,
hippie
whatever it
brew
was.
that Jurati
I was
created.
actually surprised they during the whole episode. I'm not giving anything away. They never mentioned Girardi at all, and that whole thing. They didn't say a word.
Yeah, because Terry wrote it.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're,
So I guess they ignored it on purpose, I assume. Like,
Grey, they're off to a Jurati hippie group for Borg or something right now. They're an offshoot. We don't talk about. It's like the cousin you don't want to talk about. No, that cousin you
mhm.
just never talk about.
Yep.
Jurati's lot. So yeah, it's you start with the door opening, and I knew it. You got they weren't the red beams; it was the green beams to try and put you off, not like the red
Right.
beams that the Borg have. The green beams everywhere, and then I could hear the kind of cybernetic noises ever so slightly, and I went, "Yeah, that's it." And then she turns around, and it's the image that's in Jack's mind matches up exactly. It is a Borg cube in a nebula,
Mhm.
and then you hear the voices again. But this time it's not. It's not his mother. It's Borg Queen. And they don't say that right initially, but it's very obvious because shortly after
Right.
they kind of talk about that. So, Gray, you thought possibly. First of all, I want your opinion on this. Might be a long episode. We don't care. Strap in, people. Watch it in two
Yeah.
loads. Um, want your opinion on what just happened there, and then you mentioned possibly the par race, which wasn't a bad shout. I thought it might be something to do with the par race stroke, the wormhole aliens, so it wasn't a bad shout.
Right. Right. I mean, Power Wraith were the
Bad guys.
enemies of the wormhole entities that Cisco was attached to, the prophets or whatever. So the Power Wraith were the enemies of them, and they had red eyes and everything and all this stuff. And so that sounded like a possible logical thing that it could be.
Yeah.
So I think the two biggest theories out there that everyone was throwing around was Borg and Power Wraiths. So, the Borg won out. I would like to know. They don't really say it in this episode, but I almost would like to know a little bit more how the Borg got a hold of the changelings and cut that little deal.
Yes. Yeah, maybe we find out next episode, Gray. I would like
Next,
to
yeah,
think Terry's wrote it, so I've got faith he'll tell us in one line.
yeah. But you know what? No, I don't care. And believe me, if either Trevor, I come up with a nitpick. It's not a nitpick that did anything to the episode.
Oh yeah,
it was all there and then some.
yeah.
I don't even know how they got it all into 1 hour to a whatever
Yeah.
52-minute episode. I was like,
That's
I thought it was longer. By the time it was over, you were so spent out, you thought it was like a freaking 2-hour movie.
Gray. By the time this was finished, I went straight to the local pharmacy, robbed them for 5 Valium, and took them in one go. I was burst. I was emotionally burst. And also, we'll go through this. You'll understand. If you've watched it, you probably watched it. If you please to God, if you've not watched the episode, pause this and come back, please.
Yeah, you don't want any spoilers.
No. But no, Gray's thought of possibly Power Race wasn't a bad shout, but no, it was the OG Borg, Thank God, because we've seen the Borg maybe a bit too much with Picard, but because this is the OG Borg, I don't mind so much. It is great to see them back, and it is a small episode. Normally these episodes are over 50 minutes. This is 47, so I'm like, they're fitting in a lot. So I'm just hoping the finale is like a good hour, and possibly if Gray and I can manage it and fit it in. We don't have a preview of next week's episode. It's not available at the time, but we may do maybe a one-off special video on that because there might be a lot to dig into that possibly. Shorter video, of course. So yeah, Gray's happy the OG Borg are back. I'm happy the OG Borg are back. And then it seems at this stage that Borg stroke Locutus stroke Picard have passed something on to Jack. Now this bit blew my mind. So many things did in this episode, Gray. Now you could chip in with your understanding, but for me, it skips a generation because when Picard, well, it doesn't skip a generation, it goes into the next generation. Yeah. When Picard becomes Locutus, they take everything out of him, right? Now, if you remember Star Trek First Contact and one or two other times after that, he can still hear them. And you're like, why? Everything's been taken away. Something is implanted into him in the DNA level that kind of changes him fundamentally so that he would never change or do anything. He would be normal Picard afterwards. However,
right, well, he wasn't going to be super evil. Cutest. Right.
Yeah, it gets passed into Jack and it's organic. And I'm just thinking, this is how the Borg evolved, Gray, kind of, you think about it. So they were all about, for the most part, cybernetics and whatnot, one mind, but it was predominantly based on the mechanical mechanism part of them. And now the organics is kicking in more, so they're trying to beat Starfleet, the Federation, a different way. Instead of brute forcing it, they're thinking, let's just do something organically and start trying to change people. Did you see that coming? I thought that was genius. That.
No, I didn't see the explanation coming, and we'll explain more as we go along.
Yeah.
So I really thought the writing was excellent because it was very plausible. A lot of the times when we've remarked before on the show that we always worry that the writers are writing themselves into a corner and they're not going to be able to write themselves out of it. But every time we think that, they pretty much write themselves right out of that corner. So man, hats off to them.
And they didn't this time.
Yep.
We'll try. Gray will probably try and reel me in because I'm trying my best to go through an order, but sometimes you get carried away. It's understandable. So bear with me, guys.
Let's get right to the end. No, I'm kidding.
Yay! The Enterprise J. No. Troy. No, we never want to see that. It'll be an abomination. You quit Enterprise too early to see the Enterprise J, mate. But you've seen it in pictures.
I've seen it in pictures, yeah.
So at this stage here, when they figure this out, Troy obviously breaks contact with Jack, and Jack's asking, "What the hell's wrong?" She's like, "It's all right," and runs away straight to Picard and Beverly to tell them what's up. Troy's obviously visibly shaken. She tells them they can't believe what they've just heard. Troy talks about protocols here because of what Jack potentially could be connected to the Borg in some kind of way, an organic level, and they won't be able to control them, so they might have to enable these protocols. That straight away pretty much follows a chat between Picard and Jack, where Picard is the one that's going to tell him what's happening, which I think is right because he feels awful. Rightly so at this stage, Gray. The man feels horrendous of what's happened. They couldn't help it, but it's happened anyway. Can't get rid of the bloody Borg. They just constantly seem to haunt the man. And is it safe to say this is a heated, passionate chat between the two? Because it does get a bit, gets a bit much, I thought.
I think so. I mean, I think Picard was trying to, keep him calm, and he knows he's not really succeeding, but he's trying anyway. As bad as he feels, he wants to try to get him to like chill a little. We're gonna figure this out, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But Jack is not
Jack's
having
not
a whole
happy.
lot of that.
Jack's not happy. I mean,
Oh,
understandably, he's like, hell's wrong with me? He's getting very animated and very shouty.
mhm.
Picard feels awful, but he's like, we've got to worry about the bigger picture here. Not really in dad mode, which sucks, but I understand that he's got to save everyone else as well. And he's talking about, listen, we've got protocols in place, Jack. We're going to have to take you to Vulcan. There is a place in Vulcan that will basically be able to try and deal with this situation you've got and maybe try and cure it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
He's not happy with that. Jack is not happy with that. He just thinks it's a kind of nut house for Vulcans, which maybe it is. I
Right.
don't know.
He's looking like they're gonna lobotomize his brain or something, and so he's like, "Nah,
Yeah.
I don't want to do that."
Gray mentions he's running on pure emotion and not thinking straight. That's safe to say. The guy is how we felt after the end of this episode, I think. Just emotionally spent.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, he's fixated on this thing that if he gives himself up, that he can single-handedly solve everything, and
That's a good point.
that's not happening.
No, it certainly doesn't. It certainly
At
does
least not
not.
this episode.
No. But Jack thinks he can take on the galaxy, which, is very Picard-esque of him, but no, he can't. Jack then finally, he basically does a runner, right? So I found this bit kind of cool because he tries to leave the room and two security officers are there with phase rifles, pulse phase rifles, and they won't let him out. He's like, "What's this?" And then he does his old red eye trick again, and he turns round, and they're on his side, and he's controlling them, pointing the guns at Picard. Picard's like, "What is this?" He's like, "There's no way that I'm letting this go down like this. I'm going to take control of my destiny," like Grace said, "and I'm going to try and do something about this." Picard can't stop him from leaving. He tries. No chance. Excuse the sirens in the background.
Yeah, and there's the red alert right there.
There you go. Exactly. See, if I'm in the middle of talking, it's kind of very difficult to do that, but it's raw. It's raw this episode. We always like that. Yeah, he does a runner. Jack does a runner. He jumps on a shuttle and he just bombs away. And he's looking for the Borg cube from his visions. No surprise.
Sure.
He finds the cube without, like, this was a little bit strange. Great, that he's trying to find the cube on the control panel and can't find it initially, but then he thinks, no red eye this time, he just thinks, and then he's like, I very much get vibes of when Troy from Star Trek Insurrection puts her hand on Worf's hand to try and locate where it was, and then you don't see a Borg cube, it's just like confirm, go, engage.
Yeah.
Just using Borg vision.
I'm assuming since the Borg obviously are talking to him, he pretty much knows where to go, just on pure whatever.
Yeah, you're
Kind of like a tracking device in his head.
exactly. Probably right, man. It seems like the Borg never. I note here they've never truly let go of Locutus, because they put something in his DNA, like I mentioned before, that's passed on. And at this point, which I found interesting as well, Picard was a receiver, as I mentioned before. That's why you could always hear the Borg, but nothing else more happened. But it seems after they study Jack's person a little bit more, or his scans and whatnot, they find out Jack's a transmitter. So we're seeing something. This is how he can control people and get into people's heads, right? And he can now control that now fully. It's safe to say. It's a bit terrifying.
I think we starts to unveil the reason why they wanted Jack so badly as we got on in the episode.
Yes, 100%. Varric before, bear in mind she stole Picard's body. She is literally trying to weaponize that. I think this is where she gets the DNA from. Well, she does get DNA from that. And the syndrome he has in his head, I don't know this anywhere, but the syndrome Picard had, I don't recall what it's called again. That was a misdiagnosis. That was not what it was. It was this thing all along in his DNA that was messing things up that ultimately killed him. And if he had had a kid, the whole Borg's plan would have went down the toilet, Gray. I don't know. Yeah. This is it. They were banking on him getting it on. They must have just watched him and Beverly and went, "Yeah, let's do that."
They planted it in their mind anyway. Okay.
Only way we could take over the galaxy is if Beverly and Picard get the deed done, and he did indeed. So they're trying to weaponize basically Picard's body through DNA, and they pretty much do it. And at this stage, Gray, I'm not here. I'm calling it. They're going to try and use Jack to be the next Locutus of Borg. I'm assuming you agree with that as well.
I mean, I assume
Locutus
so
2.
only because. Well, you saw the whole scene too when he gets stuck in the neck with one of the probes or whatever from the Queen. So it's kind of like you're already something's going on, you know. So how much of a Locutus person he becomes is going to be interesting. Again, we're thinking about how the writers are painting themselves into the corner once more, and so now they've got to come up with something great in the last episode that all makes sense. And so far, it's amazing. They keep doing it.
Oh man. I'm this whole time I'm chatting to Grays. It's because I watched it first, but I'm ahead of him, and I watched it first, and then he's telling me he's watching it bit by bit because it's too much, and damn right. And I'm thinking, poor Gray, I'm going to get on the phone to his local doctor and just tell him to keep an eye on his vitals because I'm thinking poor Gray's going to be struggling just like me. But yeah, here we go.
And I'll tell you more about that later. But go ahead.
Oh yeah. So. Next, we finally see Frontier Day, and I'm just woohoo, delighted. We see everything here. We see explosions everywhere. We see the fleet. I haven't zoomed in on all the ships that are there. There's many. They say the whole of Starfleet. I call BS to that one, but there's many ships. Dozens upon dozens. Different kinds. All many different kinds, Gray. Did you notice anything... Any ships there, like the classes and stuff that you like or I mention?
Well, when they had a shot of the main screen where they actually had the names of the ships, I tried to freeze frame there, and I'm no expert, so some people might know more names than I do. But I looked at it, and you saw a USS Excelsior, you saw a USS Reliant.
Yeah.
So whether those were just other ships that were named, after the originals, which is probably what it was. I don't know, but the point is we're seeing some of these familiar names, and I'm sure loads of other names that you never really heard of, but now will be in canon.
Yeah, 100%.
So it's pretty cool. It's just like a big old map of USS names all over the place.
And it's not really a spoiler, but Excelsior, 100% you did see that because it's actually brought up a little bit later on. It's kind of slightly important, actually. We get a speech from now. I didn't see this coming. Admiral Shelby, the Borg killer herself, who's in charge. She's in charge of the Enterprise F. We don't know who the captain is because she's just taking command of it.
They slyly don't. Yeah,
they're doing it on purpose. Like an admiral is going to take command of the flagship starship for the day. Of course, it is. And it's nice to see her back because at this, the best of both worlds. At the start, she's a pain in the ass, isn't she? But by the end of it, you've got respect for her because she is Riker's equivalent in terms of strategy and number oneness and whatnot. Did you like? Was it
Sure.
good to see her back, Gray?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it was great. And the speech she gave was wonderful. It was really an excellent little speech.
Was yeah.
She went all the way back and said, like, when we first started, the NX-01 Enterprise went out of space dock, the first Warp 5 capable ship, and then she's kind of worked her way up to the fact that the F was coming out of space dock to symbolize,
That's the
et cetera, et
starship,
cetera.
not a swear word.
Right, exactly. So we finally do get to see the 1701F very briefly. Uh, but yeah, it was nice.
It
It was very
was
nice.
very nice. That's an understatement, my friend. The whole speech, like Gray said, fantastic. The slowly comes out of space dock, and then does a kind of little loop and
Little
flyby.
turn, yeah.
It's beautiful starship
And all
porn
the
that
all the fireworks
Terry's.
start going off, the
Oh
space
yeah,
fireworks.
people were calling like I think Trek Central were saying they zoomed down and one of them looked maybe like a transwarp hub, and I was just like, hole, and I was like, they're just futuristic fireworks, man,
I was gonna
everywhere.
say fireworks are fireworks. Low tech is okay too.
Exactly, so great shots of the F coming out. It's brief, but it's nice. Um, and Gray and I,
You do hear a little of the music to match
oh
along with it. So
yes, you do hear some of the original music in there as well. It's touching fit. It's just the music all the way through this season and this episode are just, mm.
mhm.
And we both just note here, just wow, the whole thing. That's just fantastic. Starship porn. Great
Yep.
speech, like we mentioned, from Shelby. Lovely. Um, she talks. Now here we go. This is a bugbear. It didn't take the episode down at all for me. It was that good. It should do. Any other episode, it would take it down slightly. Now she talks about how the whole fleet now can act as one. And there's a
Right.
comment from Picard's basically saying it best. How very Borg-esque. They are all integrated to one. Did no one ever watch the new version of Battlestar Galactica? Never link the whole bloody the fleet together, because then the bad guys just take over. But obviously the Battlestar wasn't. That's all.
Well, remember though that a lot of the stuff that was going on was also put into place by the change because they were already in key
They probably
position.
wanted to put that into place. You're
So
right.
every
Yeah.
time, right? So they were there to convince the ones that didn't know they were changelings that this is all a great idea. So when they got into the top positions and the orders come through, what do you want to do? They just go, yeah, we're doing this, and they're signing off on it, and boom, it becomes a reality. So it really isn't Starfleet doing something wrong. It's the plan was that way all along.
Yeah.
Because maybe Starfleet, if they're of their right mind or weren't changelings, may not have done that.
Yeah.
But this was the whole idea. So
It was the whole idea indeed. Nasty looking changelings, they got up to no good. So, Ray, you mentioned here that you just touched on it briefly. So you think what the changelings done essentially was just a trap? If it wasn't the changelings involved, we would have probably not had that from normal Starfleet, because they would
yeah, I
have
don't think
implemented it years ago or decades before. Surely
right.
it's a common thing to do.
And as I mentioned in my notes here, they kind of did. And I could be wrong, but I'm thinking Terry is throwing back to, and I mentioned this episode before. The original season, the episode was called "The Ultimate Computer," where we were first introduced to Daystrom. Now, in Ultimate Computer, the computer that Daystrom created, he impressed his own human engrams onto it, so it started to act human, which was ultimately find out a mistake. But the point is that the computer basically had control of the ship and it became its own entity. So it was similar-ish in concept, not exactly,
Yeah.
but I believe that a lot of the concepts of that episode look like they may have been somewhat used in this episode. So again, he's grabbing from the past, and stuff, and just doing what needs to be done to make it a good episode. So it's just, and that's what you want. I mean,
Yes.
you
Borrow
want
from
your
the
writers
past.
to be, well, you want them to be fans if they can be number one. Number two, you want them to do their homework. So if they go back and look at old episodes and they pull something out of their hat from back when, people clue in that, because unlike many fans of some shows, Trek fans like us look for that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
all of a sudden, if we hear something come up that harkens back to an old DS9, Voyager, TOS, whatever, we're already out like ding, we're on the alert for this stuff.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so Terry's done this all through the series, and it's been like fabulous. It's just that's exactly what you want.
And one of biggest Star Trek's fans is Terry Matalas. Yes, he has
Yeah.
done that because we would think to do that. We would want that grace. Yeah. And
Hmm.
Terry, we trust. That's the motto of this, I think. Um,
Yep.
right, Jackie Boy. Jackie Boy, he's a busy boy,
Jackie
Jackie
boy.
Boy. He finally meets the Borg Queen.
Maybe we should call him Old Red Eyes.
Oh, red eyes back. You get everything in this podcast, this YouTube channel as well, singing as well.
Well, I'm not gonna give anything away again, but you know who we didn't see at all at this episode?
Admiral Bloody Janeway again.
Oh, exactly. I actually that's a good one. I forgot about
Terry in
that.
the
No, I was
finale, or Terry's getting a
I
score down.
I was talking about Floaty McFloathead. We didn't see him at all. We don't need to, I guess.
Because that's probably her, or Queen.
Yeah, maybe.
Probably. Or
I
the
guess.
voice talking is one.
Yeah.
No, but it's a good point. Floaty McFloatface was not there. So Jack goes on what seems now. I mentioned here that the location of the Borg, they're in a nebula. The Borg love bloody. And it looks like the remnants of a fleet, or it looks like the remnants of Unimatrix 1. Zero's the one
Don't
in
remember.
their mind. You know, the
Yeah.
Unicomplex, I've got it. You see that many times in Voyager. It's their central kind of HQ, if you like. And
Yeah.
it looks like the remnants of that because there's kind of bits missing and it's not complete. And I'm calling it here. I'm saying that is the remnants, maybe what's left of the Borg after Star Trek Voyager's finale, Endgame. Because it looks a
I
bit
think that would make
battered.
sense too.
Yeah, it
The only
does
thing
make
I was
sense.
trying to figure out was when you're looking at it, it's some of it seems battered, but then some of it's being hidden by the nebula. So it's kind of like,
And they're not in the Delta Quadrant because there wasn't a long enough
right.
time. I think they're still Alpha Quadrant, so maybe that's a different part, or it's limped its way through to wherever the Alpha Quadrant.
Mhm.
So, and it does inside. It looks more battered grey. Safe to say, this cube or this HQ, because I forgot to get. I meant to do it. I was pouring some Pepsi, and I'm like, right, let's grab the other cup at the same time. Instead, I've got the 40 no work during drinking hours, because that's what age I'm an old man now.
For people that are listening and not seeing this, we
Yes,
have
there's
our own coffee cups with the Trekway logo on it. So I always pull mine up to take a sip every once in a while.
he does it very subtly and fly as well.
Very
Other
subtly.
other beverages are available.
Yes.
But yeah, inside the ship looks more battered than outside. There's bulkheads missing. There's the tube stuff that they always use, the tubing everywhere, and you just hear the Borg Queen's voice a lot, and then you get to finally see her, but only from the back this time. We don't see her face, which is really
There's
annoying, mate.
there's some reason for that, I got a feeling. I don't know
Yeah,
why.
because it's Admiral Jamie's face or something. I don't know.
Yeah, but I one thing I noted here, when they showed the Borg Queen from the back, something's not right.
Yeah,
Because
it doesn't look. It looks like she looks like the back of RoboCop when his helmet's off,
yeah,
and it's very mechanical type at the back. Looks like
right, you
that.
don't see the outline of a head, female or male, whatever. You don't see the outline of a head like you see right now. It's kind of like your head, and then there's like a chunk coming off of it, like on one side, and I'm like, she's messed up,
Well,
or
the last
something.
Borg Queen definitely died. We saw her die. So in Endgame, so that could be the same one. I mean, I note here that, and I think it was in the TV show, because there's a couple of there's 3 Borg Queens that have played the part.
Hmm.
There is the lady who passed away from 1 or 2 of Picard, or season 1.
Yeah.
No, 2. And she passed away. She played a great role as the Borg Queen. She was fantastic. But
Mhm.
there's also the movie version and the TV version. I think the TV version was Suzanne Thompson. I think this
Yeah.
might be her that's voicing it again. I will check IMDb after this to see what states that at this stage. And then there's Alice Kriege, who I have met. So maybe her, one of the two.
Mhm.
And yeah, so at this stage here, he gives up. I noted here, he gives up a bit easily because he's standing there. He tries to kill her, he can't take the shot. It's a safety mechanism. Of course he can't. And then she's like, just give in, just give in. And you expect to see a bit of a fight, something great. But instead, no, the tubing comes towards her again with a little injection things. And,
Those
and
are those are always the creepiest things about the
they
Borg. You
are.
see little snakes with points on them,
And then they just
and then
go,
they float around.
and he said, and he doesn't fight it at all. I'm just like, come on, Jack, grow a set of cojones, man. Come on.
Yeah.
You want to see something great, but then that happens instantly, and then his eyes go kind of go all black. What did you make of that, man? Were you? I mean, it was cool to see, but I just thought, Jack, why did you give up so
Yeah,
easy,
I
man?
mean, yeah, I would rather him have put up a little bit of a
Yeah,
fight instead of just giving in totally. But again, that's just a minor nitpick. It's not that big a deal.
I don't think he's
Um,
got the same will as Picard to try and overcome them. I think
could
he's
be.
putty in the Borg's.
I mean, look what he's been through. To get, I mean, his brains are scrambled by this time.
He's a
But
couple
we'll
of
see.
dilithium crystals short of a warp core. Safe to say.
Exactly.
Um, So this plan they've got, it's mind blowing what Terry's done here, man. It's just he's a genius, really is. And I'm putting
Mhm.
here swear in advance apologies. I'm like, holy shit, the DNA from Picard is literally what they've done is they've implemented that into the transporter system of the Titan to begin with, and that's then replicated throughout the whole of Starfleet essentially, and every bloody starship. And the transport system is treating it as organic so that it doesn't, I would imagine, filter out as bad DNA and get rid of it.
Right.
It sees it as normal, and anyone that gets in and out of a transporter, that is added to their DNA. This kind of similar, not exactly the same as Jack, because Jack's supposed to be a higher type, I'd imagine, Borg person, but
Almost giving you like an invisible injection of like Borg nanomites and nanobots, and you have no idea because it all gets in on the transporter. So
yeah, and it's just waiting for the signal, which comes. They don't know what's going on. This could have been happening for months beforehand. No one has a clue. And at this stage, I'm just thinking, wow, it needs. I'm saying at this stage, it needs Jack to be the final trigger. That's not quite what happens. Close enough. And
I'm thinking. I mean, I could be wrong, but I'm thinking that since they kept on talking about how Jack's a transmitter, the only reason why some of this started happening at the end is because
they
Jack's
got
a
him. They
transmitter.
got him. So it probably was that. They just don't say it. It's just assumption, isn't it?
Right. That's why they were saying like he has to be there because everything in their plan will fall apart if he's not. So
Yeah.
none of this, uh, great writing. The plan that they had here would have happened if Jack wasn't caught and used as the transmitter.
Yep,
So
Jack is back, and we wish the bloody wasn't. Um, so this great notes here, stellar writing, and I touched on that as well. I was just genius how they managed to make this work.
mhm.
Like I can't get inside the head, no pun intended, of writers of that caliber. How they come up with this kind of ideas and story. And I'm not just talking about Star Trek. Like you could be a Star Trek know all and a geek, but to actually have the quality of writing to then implement that the Trek goodness into it and then give us what we've got. These guys are, and they're about to go on strike as well. Pay them what they want.
I think in programs like that, especially with science fiction, I think you always have a writers room, and generally speaking, if you have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever writers, or writers that are basically idea guys, and then they let the real writers flesh it out from there. So really, it's almost as if, and I'm not saying that you and I are like great writers per se, but in a way, just think about it. We're total 100%, 200% Trek geeks, right? So imagine getting like a room full of us, and each one of us is a little more expertise on something in
Yep.
Star Trek, maybe than the other. Dude, you can definitely come up with a bunch of
Yeah.
wild freaking
You're the
ideas.
TOS guy. We're turning around to you for TOS stuff. We're turning around to me for Voyager stuff. We've got a DS9 guy there. We've
Yeah.
got our gal who loves a bit of all Star Trek, and then you combine them together with
Yeah.
showrunner Terry.
I mean, to be honest with you, I would love to be in a room like that with all these people. We would just
Oh,
start throwing out every freaking wild idea we could come up with, and definitely something's gonna stick. And
uh,
look, if this goes forward and they end up doing Star Trek Legacy, then they can start fulfilling all the other wild ideas that they probably came up with and didn't use.
a good point.
You
That's a
know,
good point.
which
They
would
will
be
have
great.
so many ideas that came out of this, and they had before, and came out of this. Sorry, which is a melting pot. I'd love to be
Mhm.
no, great. You'd love to be in that room, but you would be so passionate, even more so than them. You'd be this is not canon, and so would I be. Exactly. No, that didn't happen. Canon. No, the Klingons with the bad forehead. No, you can't do that. So,
Oh,
Gray's
there'd
right.
be only one thing I would say at that whole writer's room. No freaking spore drive.
Gray, I shared this with Gray the other day. He shared it with me a while back. It's how Alex Kurtzman ruins Voyager. It's at the
Voyager
bit
in
of the
40
end where it's
seconds.
like, yeah, time to go home, guys. Time to go home, and then the Voyager
If
literally.
you remember, put that down there for
Yeah,
everybody.
okay. Remind me then.
Yeah.
The spore drive of the Voyager, which doesn't have, obviously it kicks in and then it just spins and then appears back beside Earth. Yeah, just
We're back at Earth, and there was no Voyager season or anything. It was all just one show.
it's just the end of Caretaker. Exactly, one episode, two episodes.
Boom, done. Like,
No,
what?
no bloody sport drive. Yes.
Yes,
Right.
too much of a crutch.
Anyway, so it keeps getting better. Of course it does. This is nothing. This is a 5 out of 10, and that's not a bad thing. It's just it's so much
We're
more
just,
to come.
at that point, I was just like,
Grace
I don't
having
even
to
know how
take
to
a lie
explain it.
down at this stage and take a
I
chill
know,
pill.
I'm almost numb, going like, what the hell's gonna happen next? And you're just kind of like, eh.
Gray's wife's had to come in and revive him 3 times. Like he's a fit man, but
Yep.
he couldn't take it.
Well,
But
since you mentioned that, and I'm not gonna blow it, but kind of we'll get into it in a second. But
you've
there's
already done
several
that.
moments, and even Trev said at the beginning, there were several moments. I don't even know how many moments where we sat there and got very emotional about it. And my wife did walk in, just like you said, at a certain
Were
scene,
you crying, mate?
and she thought something was wrong with me, and she's going, "Are you okay?" And I'm going like, "I'm just happy." And she looks at Star Trek and she goes, and she immediately knew, "Oh, I get it."
Oh, see, she doesn't understand fully, but she knows it means a lot to you.
Yeah. So it was just like, wow. And I was like, "Are you okay?" Like, I'm fine.
Mrs. Gray is sweet.
That's
Uh,
funny.
so now, right, the Titan. Remember that ship? It
Oh,
eventually
yeah.
arrives.
Yeah, the same.
Kinda, yeah. It eventually arrives in the Sol system because they're making their way their maximum warp. They're not sure if they should do it, but they have to because they have to warn the fleet of what's happening. But as soon
Right.
as it arrives, right, I've got this image in my head, Craig. You don't see it, but it's starships. It's not people you see, but yeah, I can
Right.
almost imagine. And this didn't happen. All the starships are like people,
All
and they
turning
turn
to
around. So, and you're like, "Oh shit, that's surrender."
Well, the thing that I gotta give again the writers credit for is to have the cojones to sit there and go like, well, we're gonna go back, even though they know it's it's freaking nuts.
Yeah,
Well, they don't have any other choice. Let's just go. It's like, okay.
and bear in mind, you see so many ships. That scene,
So
those
many.
scenes of Star Trek porn, that would have so much budget for CGI, so much budget, and it's worth every penny of it. So that's probably
Can
why
you
they didn't
imagine?
turn their heads around. It would cost too much, but
Can you
um,
imagine some of our friends over at Trek Yards because they get into the ships, right?
yeah.
Can you imagine when they saw that many ships at one time? They're probably going, and falling off the
Yeah.
chair.
They probably had an adult accident, and it's fine. It's understandable. Everyone did. Um,
Yep.
so yeah, it does arrive. Boom, out of warp. You can sensors lock on immediately. It doesn't last no time at all. It's taken over by the fleet for the one system thing that they've got going. But
Hmm.
just before it's properly taken over, because it doesn't happen instantly, it's a matter of a moment or two. Picard tries to
Hmm.
get a message out really, really quickly, and he cuts off Admiral Shelby. Shut up, Shelby! I'm talking now.
Like, what are you talking about?
It tries to, and she's like, "Listen." He's like, "Listen, I know this might not seem true, but I need to get this message out. We're in danger. Our enemy, the Borg, are back." And then straight away, cut off. Not his head. Could have happened, but no. Signal
Yeah,
cut off. And then he's like, "That's it. They've completely taken over the ship now." Uh, Shelby probably still thinks what the hell's going on. Now,
it quickly starts going south for them.
wait to hell south. This signal that cuts him off is the signal that probably, we don't know for sure, but we'll assume rightly so, that Jack has transmitted because transmitter.
Right.
And that, you see 7 or 9 struggle with that one. It's like a bit much for her. And then, you're seeing some green appear on the screens. The Borg are trying to take over. And then the message that this sent out, this command, is what doesn't finalize the simulation, but it starts the simulation. It seems this was a nice right mechanic around this one, Gray. How the old fogies, as I'm calling them, because that's kind of what they were leading on to here, are not taken over by the command. It's a thing to do with the brain, whereas it stops developing after 25. The front cortex, I believe it was.
Yeah, but they actually based it in real facts. So they're saying that at regular normal humans, more or less around the age of 25, their frontal cortex, their cognitive features of the brain are fully developed by that time.
Yeah.
So they wrote into the story that those were the people that they could take over because they're not quite fully developed, and so they're easy and more pliable to take control. Whereas the old fogies, all their their cognitive abilities been there since 25. They're a lot older than that now, and I thought that was really a cool little thing of writing because essentially,
Brilliant.
I mean, anywhere from I don't know, 25 to 50% of your starship could be made up of the people that can be taken over, and that's a lot. That's mutiny.
Oh, hell yes.
So, and that's exactly what it goes down.
It's a great writing mechanic, isn't it, Grace? So that we keep our TNG crew fine because they are obviously a lot older. And Shaw as well. Shaw mentions that. He makes a comment, kind of, I can't remember, it was roughly like, why wasn't I taken over, that kind of thing. And I think Seven says something like, I think you're in the wrong age of 30 or something like that. Shaw's younger. Shaw and Seven are probably younger, but they're all over 25. So Shaw's probably in that. I don't know real life as the actor, but probably late 30s, early 40s, I would imagine.
Yeah, or even mid 40s or whatever,
Yeah, so they're all good, but Seven's obviously struggling a bit more with it because she's still got a couple of the implants. So, and then Shaw basically tries to order his bridge crew, give them some orders, right, to get out of here. But the comm officer is not turned around, he's just stationary. And then you see his face. It's the start of this simulation. Now, you used to, when you're assimilated, nanobots are put into your system and they start taking over. But because this is biological, I'm thinking, how does this even happen? It must just get programmed, because what's replicating here, Gray? This bit I don't feel understand, and it blows my mind.
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to get a better explanation in the next episode, but from what I gathered, the easy explanation is that there's a bunch of tiny little nanobots that basically are now put into everybody's bloodstream via the transporter. And it's been happening for a while. So these nanobots, since they are of Borg technology, even though it's more organic, the Borg can direct it. So the Borg just basically tells them, look, take them over and essentially assimilate. But they're not truly full Borgs, and this may be the key for the next episode.
Save them. Yeah.
To save them, because they haven't been drilled into and made a real Borg guy.
Well, that's the same as before when you're assimilated. See, when you're assimilated on a say the Borg board you and they try to assimilate you, you're never fully assimilated in. They need to get you back to their ship to do it because they're putting all the physical parts on. It's enough to turn you to their will, but you don't have any of their advantages. You can hear what they think, and it's some of the benefits of having them all, as we'll touch upon in a moment with that.
And you made a good point, because there was scenes
thank you, Gray.
in TNG where Picard couldn't do anything, and he was sitting there, and that was a great episode because you see a tear, right? He was suffering because he couldn't do anything. It's almost like being paralyzed, and all these people are doing stuff to you, and you're totally cognizant of everything they're doing to you. Which is horrible.
His
and so that's
the whole time.
Right, and that would be the full Borg treatment, so to speak.
Yeah.
So these are Borg Juniors.
Borg Juniors. It's kind of good to do this because it makes what happens in the future of this episode plausible. It makes what potentially could save them plausible, because if they're all full bloody robots by the end of it, there's no coming back from that. You can't recover that many people. It's just impossible. So it makes sense from a story point of view. Also as well, because they're all under 25s, Geordie's concerned, what about my kids? Sydney is like, it's we're the Borg now, basically.
Oh yeah,
She's saying,
worked out.
looking deadpan, looking her old man in the face, going, "Surprise, Daddy! The Borg are
We are the
back."
Borg. Like, oh shit.
He's, oh no. And then very reminiscent of you'll maybe remember the name of this admiral. I forget his name, mate. Battle of Wolf 359. The admiral tells Picard to stay back, but then eventually ignores him and goes to fight. Very reminiscent of this scene because you see Shelby on the board, the F, get killed by a crew. They literally go up and double phaser her. Double phaser her, 2 holes in her chest, man. She is well and truly dead.
Oh yeah, and it's real quick too. You would miss it if you blinked.
Oh yeah,
you just saw it come up and
do you remember that admiral from Battle of Wolf 359, the proper old boy that was? Do you remember his name?
No, I know what you're saying, but
anyone remembers, put in the comments below. It's very reminiscent that the ship isn't blown up. It better not be bloody blown up. Leave the F alone. So
we can't take that. Too many ships getting blown up.
Too many enterprises. Right. So the oldies, as we're calling them now, because that's what's making them survive at this stage. The old fogies make a break for it, and they stun, as I'm calling them, the semi-Borg in their path. Now, Picard's like, set your phasers to stun because we don't want to kill them. Stun works because they don't have their shielding at this stage. Could you imagine their force field, their shielding comes from the implants. They can't generate that yet. So that's what I meant before. They're not fully assimilated at this stage. Not full Borg, is great notes here. And then when they're going in the turbo lift to try and make a break from it, the Excelsior captain comes on. Remember that little scene there, Gray? He comes on. Yep. He's saying, I can't remember his name. They're trying to make Excelsior manages to take back control of their bridge. So to imagine there's more old fogies in that bridge than younger people. They managed to take back control. They tried to make a break from it. But you just see this on the turbo lift, the control panel. All the other icons of the ships just approach on this one ship and then fire and then gone. So don't mess with the semi-Borg because so
a few other things.
There's where Excelsior came from. So I missed that, Graham. What did you say?
I was saying you're sitting there blowing holes, and I said, and a few other things too.
Oh yeah. Oh no, that's
one of the things I would have loved to have seen that it's. And again, this is not really a nitpick, but a name drop would have been cool. I would like to have seen the guy came on. You heard the captain of the Excelsior come on to say that they've taken over the bridge, or retaken the bridge, whatever. I would love to see him come on and say something like, "This is Captain Sulu." And we've managed to take over the bridge. It could have been Sulu's son. That was in command of the Excelsior. And that would have been cool. I would have name dropped that right away and just let it see if anybody could pick up on it.
Too convenient, man. We got the Excelsior though.
I know, but still, it would have been cool. Just kind of like, this is Captain Sulu. We took over the bridge, and and they're dead. Like,
damn it, fly her apart then.
That's right. So, fly apart then.
As Gray notes here. Would have been nice to see an outside shot. Easy for me to say of that Excelsior.
I was waiting for it. I was thinking they were going to cut to it.
Why not? They've already spent their budget, mate. Remember, they've just literally.
I know. Fine.
Splurged
again. It didn't do anything to the episode, and we're nitpicking, but it would have been kind of neat to see a quick little 2-second clip or something.
I've got a funny feeling we've seen it before, Gray. We've seen that modern version of the Excelsior. I'm sure we've seen it in season 1 or 2 of Picard, probably 2, and it looks bloody good. A modern version of the same kind of outline. Looks good. So I've got that in my head anyway. Now, what we saw in the teaser, was it the teaser trailer? No, it was the trailer for this episode before, was the line from Troy, where so basically the some of the crew, some of the old fogey TNG crew are coming down in the turbo lift. They're going to make a break for the maintenance level because they could get a maintenance shuttle which isn't linked into the system. And I'm thinking, smart genius. They come down and a bunch of phasers are trained on them straight away, and it's Troy just, oh my god! And what's the line is?
She said she's never been so happy to see so many wrinkles in her life.
All of them, actually, all of them. But mostly Picard.
By the way, I wanted to drop a scene in. This came a little
Yeah.
bit earlier, but when Picard was uh feeling like horrible about this whole thing with Jack and everything, it's Data that comes in the room to comfort him. And Data says, he goes, "Would you like me to say something that would make you feel better?" Remember now, Data has some emotions going on now. It's not just
Yeah.
the same Data. And Picard says, "There's really nothing you can say." And I thought that was a real touching moment, because then the next thing that Data says, he goes, "I know," and he just puts his hand on his shoulder, and then
That
Picard
was nice and
touches his
sweet,
hand,
wasn't it?
right? Touches his hand, and because that's his buddy, and stuff. And that was a great little scene, little thing that just dropped in there, but it was perfect, and it was actually better that Data did it.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
because this is Data 2.0, remember? New and
yep,
improved. Um, so, no, I'm glad you put it in. There's the odd thing we'll forget, and of course, like,
yeah.
witness so much. I'm going to watch this episode a second time, which I very rarely do.
Well,
Um,
hell, I'm gonna watch the whole season again once it's over.
binge it back to back. Um, so, yeah, that was a quality line from Troy. Well done. She has some funny moments in this as well. And it seems like great minds think alike. They've got the same idea as the other guys in the turbo lift as well. And at this point here, they're going to enact their plan, which is to get off there, like I say, on the maintenance shuttle, make a break for it.
Mhm.
Seven, little funny moment from Seven, um, when she mentions the robot is right to the plan that they've got. Now, I thought this was a bit rude here, uh, but Gray notes here that she doesn't really know him, and that's why she maybe said that they're not friends. But I still, because as soon as she says it, uh, uh, the look from Brent Spiner is just like what you wouldn't have done before, but he was just like rude.
Right, exactly.
I think it was rude, Gray. Come on, like
I
don't
know
say
I
that.
did, but it was humor rude,
Oh no, it was funny. Yeah, yeah,
as opposed to like biting type rudeness or something.
yeah.
And she doesn't. And if you think about it, she only knows Data of what she's heard about Data. She's never really met him. She doesn't know him. She didn't go through any experiences with him. Nothing. So
Yeah.
she just goes the robot. Whatever.
It was funny, thankfully.
It makes you think about Lost in Space with the robot.
No, it was funny.
But
It
yeah,
was funny. If it was just been cruel, it's different. But it was done in humour, so yeah, no, it's fine. The Geordie at this stage has a great idea, um, and I could see this coming. He is like, no, better still, we are going to go to the Fleet Museum. We are going to go to the Fleet Museum, and we're going to do something there. And I'm thinking at this stage, great. I thought a bit too far fetched. I'm thinking they are literally all each going to take a starship. Like we kind of joked near the start
well, right. We were
that they're
saying that
all going to
last week.
control one each because at this stage, hopefully, they get it. It's the future using an older ship, so you don't want to integrate it into the network, but at the same time, you want to be able to that one person could control a whole starship themselves, and
Mm.
that's what I thought might happen. And we weren't a million miles off it, but you thought that was going to happen as well, Gray, didn't you?
I knew something was going to go on. I was sitting there thinking, I wasn't expecting what happens next, but I was saying, okay, now that makes sense. You know. But
My
the way they handled it and what they did coming up next year was
oh,
perfect, because it made way more sense. You know,
way more
and of
sense.
course was just fabulous.
Um, as I note here, as I note to the word, I think they're going to go to the Fleet Museum and power up the old classics to kick some bloody arse. That's what I've noted exactly. So, not exactly because
Mhm.
that'd been practical, but it was close enough. They're in the shuttle, the maintenance shuttle finally, and Data's been a bit negative initially, but then it's Jordan that turns around and says, could you not try and be a little bit more positive? And what line did Data come back with, which gave us a chuckle?
He just goes, "I hope we die quickly."
Well, a smiley face, like a cheeky face,
Right, with
because
a
that's what
smile
he's
face.
like now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was like his triad humor. Like, yeah, okay,
he's getting there. He's getting there.
yeah, it was funny. It was fun.
So I had a chuckle at that. Now, emotional roller coaster, as we've said,
Oh
it's
yeah,
up
oh
and
yeah.
down, and this is emotional for different reasons. Um, Shaw's trying to hold everyone back, firing upon their escape, and he fortunately takes a shot and is dying. He's trying to protect his colleagues. Seven stays with Raffi, which I know Gray will be happy with. especially me, because we're hoping it'd be Rafi, so she might not make it.
Well,
Who
I was
knows?
hoping Rafi was going to take this
Yeah,
the
no, but
phaser
it
and
wouldn't have
die.
been as emotional. That's the thing. It would have just been, let's have a party instead, Gru. But no,
Yeah, but they
Seven's.
really should have thought about that scene. They should have said like, well, Shaw popularity, Shaw, Raffi, Shaw, kill Raffi. They, but they didn't, so it's
I'm,
okay.
I'm sad, but it was the right thing to do. Like Seven
Yeah, it
stays.
was. It
Seven
was.
stays because that's her captain. Rafi stays because she still get hots for Seven, clearly. And literally watch him pass away, and she's really, really emotional about it. He
Sure.
says to Seven, "This ain't my ship anymore. Con is yours." And I'm like, I've got a tear in my eye. I was like, this is too much
Oh
for me,
yeah, me
man.
too.
This is. But then he
Yep.
says, to finish it off, he says, "The ship is not mine anymore. The con is yours." Oz 7 and 9. I called her by her full blooded. I was like, oh my
Yeah.
god. I'm
Yeah.
at work watching this, which I shouldn't have done, but I'm like, hopefully no one comes round. So are you all right, Trevor? Like Mrs. Gray Dunn
That's
was like,
allergies. Allergies. Yeah, that's it.
allergies, pollen season. There's no pollen outside. Yeah. So great. Your thoughts here, man. You were the same as me. You know
Yep.
here. You
Yep.
accept him as part of the family almost.
Yeah, I mean, he was so good through this whole season that I automatically accept him as part of the family. And we even talked last week about, ooh, it'd be kind of cool to see if Legacy goes on, Shaw could pop back up, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So I was just totally gutted, and I was in tears too, just like you, because I'm sitting there going, no, and I'm going like, even though it made total sense to everything, and I'm glad that they did it, I was still like, oh no, man, and stuff.
Uh,
So that was just like, man,
It was extremely sad because it was great acting from the actor. He pulled it off
yeah,
brilliantly. He doesn't directly transfer. I don't think the computer literally took that verbatim that 709's now the official
yeah,
captain. But he's basically hinting that if a series comes back, with or without the Titan, he is the captain of the Titan, for want of a better,
right,
So.
right.
Yeah, so very sad about that, but it was done beautifully, done correctly. At the end of this scene, you briefly see the Starfleet Armada again, Borg Starfleet Armada, just briefly, because let's say they're running on fumes and CGI budget at this stage. So this might have even been a copy and paste, which I don't mind. They literally now train their guns on the Earth space dock. And you don't see it getting blown up, and I hope you don't, because that thing's bloody iconic.
Oh yeah,
So don't blow it up,
that's
please.
gonna be bad.
Uh,
By the way, I want to mention one thing that I saw
yeah,
there that I don't know if has any bearing on anything. But did you look at the formation of all the ships?
yeah. Was it spelling out something? Was it Borg?
It
Please
looked
don't
like
say
yeah.
no, because
It
see
looked like a
if it spells out Borg, I'm going to be disappointed. That is lame.
no. I don't think it's spelled out Borg. But when I was looking at it, I was wondering whether it was some type of Borg hieroglyphics because it didn't look normal.
It's some kind of formation. You're right, man. Yeah, I did
Yeah,
notice
there's
that.
definitely you see all these shapes, and there are definitely some kind of almost like an alien language. And I'm like, okay, this means something. It's got to mean something.
Yes, and thankfully it's not Borg, because if it is, Terry's just lost a bloody point there. But no, you're right, Terry's better than that, so it will mean something. You're right. I did notice it. Thank you for bringing it up. You hear, I don't know if Sydney LaForge is kind of an unofficial spokesman to meet up with Mummy Borg Queen on the ship, but she literally just says now, like, let's prepare to take out Earth's defences as the fleet starts moving towards the space station, the space dock, and Earth as well. And then it just cuts out. So we don't see it being taken out. Thank God for that.
Right.
Now, take a breath, guys. Might pause this, take a little break, refreshment, come
That's right.
back. You might need it.
Recuperate.
We're already at like an 8, 9 out of 10 for this episode, and then what will we see takes us beyond that. The oldies get to this fleet museum, and that's when we think, oh, they might take a starship each. And I think it's Picard says, are you going to take command of some of these? Like, what's are any of these flyable kind of thing? And he's like, well, kinda. He's like, I've been working on this for a little while, a bit of a restoration project over the last 20 years. Space dock opens slowly, and I'm not clicking immediately. Gray's not clicking, not immediately. But then you start seeing a silhouette with music coming on, and then the lights come on, and the hairs are standing at the top of my head right now, just talking about this. and the lights appear. US
And there's the
Enterprise
name.
1701D. No bloody A, B, C, the D, and then all the lights start coming and zooming up. He's like,
Oh,
wow.
Jordy said just prior to that too. He says, "I was working on this to be a surprise, but
What the heck? You're right, mate. What the heck he's thinking? And it's just perfect timing. He has been working on it for 20 years as a project. He was going to show it someday, probably when it was 100% complete. At this stage, it's not 100% complete. It's like 3/4 kind of thereabouts. Everyone
you know
is
what I
gobsmacked.
thought was funny too about that scene. Sorry, was that when you hear him talking, Jordy, about how he did it and what he had to do and borrowed this piece from that piece. It sounded exactly like a guy who has a really nice car and he's going to the junkyards and getting all the stuff to put it all back together like it was
Yeah,
pristine. He was
yeah.
just going through the whole thing. Well, the
No,
nacelles came from this ship and
Great mentions that. So literally, they did. I can't remember the name of the ship, but they literally took the engines and then the cells, which in my idea are the same bloody thing. So I noted down here the bridge, the battle bridge section, which is the whole thing essentially, and the warp core and the engines, whatnot, from another Galaxy class starship. Because thanks to the Prime Directive for Iridian 3, where the ship crashed, the saucer section had to be reclaimed and taken away because when it contaminate the people on the planet. So they take it away quick as they can, and obviously the battle bridge section was blown up, so that's why they've kind of patched it together. And Geordi he talks about this and how they've done this, that, and the next thing. And he's literally, I patched this, I've done this, but he's cut off immediately by Riker at the end. Just he's like, perfect. And that was such a good line. She's perfect. No, she's beautiful. To which Beverly goes, "Oh, she's so beautiful."
they
And
all are saying it one after the other.
yeah,
It's
like
great.
Riker's deadpan when he says it. He's just saw the love of his life, Gray. You know,
And what about Data? Data gets all choked up with his new emotion. He's
he
never experienced that before. So he's
yeah.
going, and he's like getting all teary eyed. He's like,
Especially Data 2.0, as I note here. That's his new name,
yeah,
isn't it? Now, here's a funny part. Again, humour done in the right place. And we've been teased by Terry about this. He won't tell us why yet. And I hope we find out one day. Please, Terry, mate, please. Not that you watch this, but if you do, he's like, Jordy mentions we couldn't use the Enterprise E. Everyone slowly turns around and looks at Worf. And Worf's like, that wasn't my fault. And they're
I
like,
know,
yeah,
that
yeah,
was
yeah.
great.
What's happened to your Grey Man?
I
That's
know. We're all
hilarious.
left with like, huh?
What?
Now we got to go start researching the books or something to find out, like, what are they talking about?
Please, Terry will tell us at some point. If not in the finale, another show or something. Please tell
That'll be a
us.
legacy story.
Because it's this, the story's been redacted, the logs have been redacted of what happened. That's the official angle on it. Something must have like really happened that they can't talk about. Please tell us
Yeah.
one day. I don't see why you wouldn't. So yeah, at this stage we're all a little bit wow at this stage just to see this ship here. Great. But I'm feeling the exact same as you here, so you can say your bit here about like how emotional you were and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, out of the whole episode, this was the one that really got to me the most. So I'm just sitting there like bawling like a baby. I'm so happy and I'm crying over all this stuff. And this is what I was telling you before. My wife caught me. Wonder if I was what was wrong with me. And it was just so nice and so good. And when you grow up as a Trekkie like we have, and you haven't seen, you know, like stellar Star Trek in so long, and stuff like that. I mean, the last time I had these kind of feelings were the TOS movies and also some of the TNG movies, etc. But it's been a very long time. I mean, very long time. And
Uh,
we were promised some of this stuff going back when Picard first came on, season 1 and 2. And of course, those are the seasons that we want to forget and burn. So basically, this came on and it was just like, oh my god! After all these years, you really start feeling how much you missed it, and you just like that's it, and you're just totally let loose because the Enterprise is just as important, if not one of the most important characters.
oh yeah.
I mean, if it's just a ship,
No, it's the most. It's the
um,
most. The Starship is always the most. Roddenberry
right,
himself said that the number one character is the bloody Starship.
right.
You know?
And this was just like totally perfect. And the whole, again, the writing was stellar. How did they get to it? Well, because Jordy was working on it to surprise his buddies, but now we're going to use it because we need to. So it's just like, holy
Ah,
crap.
It's
And they
just
just all walk, and when they walk on the bridge, it was great. It was dark, and then finally, the one thing I started thinking about when I came on, and this is again a nitpick about the season, is that every set is so damn dark. I'd like to see it a little brighter. So I'm sitting there going like, wow, I hope they don't just put the whole Enterprise D bridge in the dark, and they didn't. They lit it all up, and
it wasn't as
we saw
bright as before.
everything. No, not as bright. I agree, but it was definitely bright
That was
enough.
it was too bright back in the bloody TNG days, if we're being
Yeah,
accurate. I mean, the amount of bloody fuel that ship's going through just to
that's
keep the
right.
lights on. No,
That's the way they did things back then. That's understandable.
Gray does note that. So yeah, literally, like they all step on the bridge. You could see it dark, you could see the outline of it, but like say Gray mentions, the lights do turn on, and I'm like, wow, this must have cost a fortune to build this set. I don't even care for the minutes that they're on the bloody thing. They
3D
get
printing, man, it's cheap now.
they get the TNG music as well, just perfect. And in fact, as you've probably seen, Gray doesn't know this yet. I made the thumbnail for this before we came on, and it's it's just the senior officer standing at the back of the bridge, overlooking the bridge. Sure. That's the thumbnail. So there you go, Gray. It was just perfect. It seemed like the right thing to do. And then there's a little funny moment from Worf again. Worf's the comedian of this season, which is fine because his humor's so deadpan. He's like, oh yeah, I preferred the weapons on the E. It had more phasers and like torpedoes this. And Roy's just like, Worf! And he's like, she's perfect, Jordan. She's perfect.
He really meant it. He wasn't just saying it.
Yeah, of course. He's just being Worf, isn't he?
It's just that that's Worf. He he's a Klingon. They're gonna say shit like that.
Yeah. And then you've got Picard at the side. So the little speech, which was beautiful. He's like, he's standing there. He's like, having y'all here now and realizing what I've missed the most. And it's like a pregnant pause. And then he points and he's go, the carpet. I miss the carpet the most. I've just another funny moment that's done correctly. Yeah. I didn't expect him to say that because it was such a beautiful little
I wasn't
speech,
either. I was like, huh? And I go, oh, that's great. I like that.
The carpet. And there's a point where
again a throwback of the way they constructed things back then. You didn't stop to think about that. But it's just,
of course, yeah. And it's maybe a little hint to how they made this whole expensive set for minutes of shooting, because between the carpet comment, you've got Data goes up to his old chair, puts his head in his chair. He's like, "Oh, hello, chair again," something like that. And then he pauses. He's like, "Sure, this ship can't be like taken over." And Jordy's like, "No, it's cut off. It's cut off. It's the last ship that was, part of the old style networking system."
Well, even Jordy before that called it analog.
Yeah, which is not, but we know what he
said.
Means.
This ship is analog. Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of like I get it.
It was amusing. it was humor done at the right time. This is it. Now, Picard does say to Jordy, Mr. LaForge, do you mind if I take the chair? And he's like, oh, by all means, Admiral, it'd be, my pleasure. And I found that sweet that he asked permission. It's not technically his ship anymore. It's Jordy looking after it now. So the fact that he asked permission, I thought that was just respect, wasn't it, Gray?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it was.
So he sits back in the chair, and he then literally goes, computer reactivation process begin, or something along those lines, which I found brilliant. Just like, let's kick the old girl back into gear. And then we hear Majel Barrett's voice, Gene Roddenberry's wife, kick in. And I'm like, yes. I'm wondering how they done this, Great. It must have been said at one point, or they've used some kind of computer technology, because obviously she's not with us anymore now, for those that don't know. So
she's done so many lines for the computer over many, many, many years that there's all kinds of stuff that they could have just pulled up and found and used.
So they might not have loads of lines.
That was really nice. It was right. So that was nice because you don't hear her, as the voice of the computers anymore.
Yeah.
Obviously because she passed away, but to bring her back in a sense for this was just like, not only was it great, it was also a nice tribute, to her as well.
It was.
So all that was like great, just to hearing the voice going like, yeah, damn, it's perfect. Icing on the cake.
The best computer voice. And we probably won't hear too many one-liners because, let's say, that there's only so much recorded and you need to use the right lines at the right times. But that was the main one we heard. That's all we need to say. She does then say, because it's probably been said before, and this is probably why she's probably never uttered the word Admiral Picard, right? So this is
Right, exactly.
this plays in perfectly, Gray. He then says the ship is now under the command of Captain Jean-Luc Picard. To which he turns around and goes, right, okay, I'm happy to hear that. I'll take the field demotion, whatever. I found that hilarious. Terry is
Yeah.
taking something that he's no control over because he was never called Admiral back then and used it to, because he's most famous as Captain Jean-Luc Picard, isn't he? So that was perfect. That was just perfect, that bit, Gray.
What I think is great on Jordy's side is like all of us would have like, I don't know, a favorite motorcycle or a favorite dirt bike or a favorite car that we might restore and bring out on the weekends or whatever. He's got a whole bloody starship. I mean, not a shuttlecraft, right?
Yeah.
Not another little ship, a whole freaking starship. I'll take it out on the weekends.
Yeah, exactly. Someone would take their old classic Aston Martin or something, their Jag out at the
Yeah.
weekend. He's like, nah, hold my beer. I've got a Starship. I'll go around the block a few times.
Yeah.
Now, again, it keeps getting better and better. You think, how can it get much better? Oh, it does.
Yeah.
It really does. Captain, in capitals are put here, Jean-Luc Picard,
Right.
gets in his seat and he's like, take us out of, take us to the Sol system, maximum warp. To which Geordie, I don't know, says, okay, aye, sir. No, it was Geordie. Yeah, aye, sir.
Yeah.
And then
You
he
see
goes,
the doors open.
the
on
doors
space
open
dock,
slowly. He sits down. One of the last things he says is, engage. Perfectly. And then, as Gray says, you see the doors open. You see the ship. Now, these sweeping shots are beautiful throughout the whole season, Gray.
Oh, yeah.
And you get another one right at the end. It's perfect. The ship comes out. The TNG music is kind of an altered version of it is playing. It comes out almost kind of not. It's not practical, but he does this to tease us. The ship comes out and kind of turns around so that it's going to fly right into the camera, and then it's a beautiful sweeping shot of this ship.
Yeah.
And then literally engage, and then she warps to the Sol system. Now, it's worth noting it's missing a lot of stuff. It's not got its full weapons. Let's hope the shields stay. Riker mentions about having to run and hide because it's one starship against the fleet.
It does have torpedoes because they said at some point during that part, they said load the torpedoes.
The Worf.
So,
Yeah.
right. So
The
we know they
bots are
have
loading it.
photons. They have
They have
mostly
phasers. It's somewhat. Shields, maybe, hopefully, probably.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And the thing
It sounded like it had most everything.
See, back in the days of TNG, those bridge officers alone probably would struggle to control that whole ship. But I guess Geordie's obviously brought it up to some kind of level without making it networked. Where, like I said before, we thought we could have one officer legend per starship. But Seven stays back, so she wouldn't have been on the Voyager, which is a shame. So, yeah, at this stage, great, your line, hold my beer and get me a box of tissues.
Exactly.
I watched that scene so many times. I went back, watched it again.
I know.
Went back, watched it again.
I watched it like twice. I got to go back and watch it.
I don't think you could wear out digital, but I kind of did. I think
there's so many other little things like just coming to my mind right now. Like there was a whole part where I think it was I don't know if it was Picard or which crew, and they were just gliding their fingers across the controls at the front. It's just like you would on a car, like an old car that you restored with a shiny paint job, and you're just putting your hands across it like that. That's exactly what they were doing. It's just little things like that. It's just perfect.
Another little thing when Picard's saying a reactivation process for the starship, it pans outside the ship, and it only had some lights on. All the lights start coming on slowly but surely. And the warp nacelles start glowing up again. Deflector shield looked different. Didn't look like, but then again, it's taken from another starship. It just didn't look very blue. That's all. But
remember, we haven't seen the Enterprise D in this type of glory with all the new equipment and things that they have at their disposal.
True.
And it's never been done in I don't think in I guess it was done in HD, but yeah.
It's not
still. I mean,
it's not been done in 4K. They don't do 4K special effects for Star Trek because it's too expensive. That pisses me off, but they just don't. Neon Visuals, your man for that. But yeah, so listen, we'll give our final thoughts and then we'll wrap up. I haven't even done in fact, we'll do our usual quick call terms because it's been so exhausting this that I forgot to do that. So listen, of course, we've really enjoyed this season. We look forward to doing the finale. That's going to be nuts. If this is how you beat that, I don't know.
Yeah.
But if you're fed up of our mugs on this as well, as YouTube, YouTube has podcasts now, which we are available on any podcast platform you're on. You can listen to audible format at the Trekway, and also Twitter as well at the Trekway.
Mhm.
Gray's show, we're delaying that for a week. We'll be back next week for that. Gray's Green Room at Gray's Green Room on Twitter. We'll be talking about entertainment and whatnot. It's a bit of everything, really. We love that show as well, and you can find him on all podcast platforms as well. And don't forget our man, our friend Nick, who's now doing YouTube as well at Extreme PC UK. That's about gaming, but he's going to have all kind of crazy shows in that as well. And Gray and I are on that show. We're on all three. But yeah, our final thoughts, Gray. We'll wrap up. We'll go and take a little sleep before the next podcast because I'm exhausted. Great minds think alike. I put down here 11 out of 10. Wow, wow, wow. Not enough wows. I should have had another 3 or 4 in there. All throughout this episode, I know the hairs were in the back of my neck. They were standing tall. I was emotional. I had a tear in my eye more than once. I watched several parts of the episode several times. I've actually tweeted Terry Metalis and a bunch of other people going, thank you so much. You probably won't see it because I'm a small time player in the Trek YouTubing world, and he'll have lots of thanks like this as well, Gray. But it's the
his
thought that
assistant will
counts.
see it though.
Yeah, exactly, mate.
Well, what was funny is and I didn't know that Trev had rated 11 out of 10, and so I independently did 11 out of 10, and of course I see he did it. I'm going like, that makes sense. So yeah, you couldn't go wrong with the episode. I was like happy, I was sad, happy again. I mean, the emotions kept going all over the place. I was speechless a bunch of times, etc. And I'm just want them to erase season 1 and 2 out of canon. That's all.
Well, we need to get a Klingon bird of prey to go round the sun really fast, go back in time, and then erase that from canon. Harry,
That's
do
right.
it. Just do it in Star Trek Legacy.
Disappear.
So I'm thinking, I don't know how you top this. As long as next week's another 10 out of 10, 11 out of 10, that's fine. How you beat it, I don't know. Apparently, we've been told it ends perfectly. It's a swan song to the TNG. So I'd like to think it's some kind of scene of the Enterprise D going off into the sunset one last time, very much like the original movies, or something like all of them sitting at their places on the Enterprise D bridge. So I'm looking forward to it. I hope it's not another 47 minutes. Enjoy it, an hour plus. Let's enjoy it. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying along. We're really excited about this, and I've enjoyed doing this whole season. Bring on the last one, Gray. We don't have a preview for it.
Oh,
sorry, Gray. We don't have a preview for it
Quick.
because it's not available yet. But we might come back and do a special for it, seeing how we feel. If not, we'll jump into the last episode. So, yeah, until then, great. You're going to have to do a double. So now, do your thing, my friend.
Live long and prosper.
And as always, a little comment and a subscribe below if you appreciate this format. Thank you, my friends. See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.